Hey listeners, it's Maya, Molly, and Nature here. Today, we present to you the Inspiring Words podcast about the decision to go to the moon speech by President John F. Kennedy.
On May 29, 1917, John Fitzgerald Kennedy was born in Brooklyn, Massachusetts. He was born to the multimillionaire corporate executive Joseph Kennedy and his spouse, Rose Fitzgerald Kennedy. John F. Kennedy, more commonly known by his initials JFK, enrolled at Harvard University and received a degree in international affairs with honors in 1940. While at Harvard, he wrote a thesis paper highlighting the German government's failure to prevent World War II. This paper later became the best-selling book, Why England Slept. Once President Kennedy graduated college, he decided to enlist in the U.S. Armed Forces, but was turned down due to an old back injury. After months and months of exercising to strengthen his back, he was accepted into the Navy. In 1961, John F. Kennedy was elected the 35th President of the United States. He became the youngest man to become president. Unfortunately, JFK's presidency was cut short due to being assassinated while riding in a motorcade in Dallas, Texas on November 22, 1963.
On May 25, 1961, President John F. Kennedy announced his ambitious goal of sending an American safely to the moon before the end of the decade. A large variety of political factors affecting his decision and the timing of it, including the growing pressure to have the United States try to catch up to the Soviet Union in the so-called space race. In 1957, the cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin had become the first human in space on April 12, 1961, which greatly embarrassed the United States. Alan Shepard became the first American in space on May 5th, but he only had a short suborbital flight instead of orbiting the Earth like Gagarin. Kennedy wanted to announce the great technological feat that they had the chance of achieving before the Soviets, and thus the Cold War ensued. The majority of all efforts in NASA's space flight program were supported by Kennedy's encouraging speech.
In the speech, "We chose to go to the moon," John F. Kennedy addresses the president, vice president, governor, and other significant dignitaries in the beginning and says how grateful he is of the president for making him an honorary professor. Throughout the speech, John F. Kennedy talks about how much the United States and mankind has grown throughout the years. The printing press came this year. Last month, electric lights and airplanes became available. The main point President Kennedy makes in the speech is that the United States should be the first country to have ventured out to the moon.
On September 11, 1962, President John F. Kennedy stood in front of a crowd gathered at Rice University in Houston, Texas to recite a speech that would drastically change the United States' efforts over the next 10 years. His speech would mark the commencement of new times for humanity, an era of space exploration and innovation. The context of President Kennedy's The Decision to Go to the Moon speech began the infamous space race between the United States and the Soviet Union. At this point, the Soviet satellite Sputnik had been in space for about 4 years, and only 1 year prior, Soviet astronaut Yuri Gagarin had become the first human being in history to enter space. The United States was rapidly becoming more concerned about a red moon, meaning the Soviet landing on the moon first. President Kennedy needed to quickly forge a plan that would excite the U.S. population and reestablish the United States as a top world superpower. And so, he did just that. He powerfully declared the United States would be going to the moon within the next decade. In President Kennedy's speech, he uses many rhetorical devices, including, but not limited to, rhetorical questions. Kennedy uses rhetorical questions to subtly persuade the audience and to further emphasize the point he is trying to make. For example, Kennedy states, "Why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal?" And they may as well ask, "Why climb the highest mountain? Why, 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? Why does Rice play Texas?" He uses this rhetorical device to further push the need to send the United States to the moon and to further persuade United States citizens that this is the best idea.
Another rhetorical device in "We choose to go to the moon" would be the use of anaphoric. President Kennedy uses this device to lay emphasis on ideas made by the United States of America, as well as the space station. In Kennedy's speech, he exclaims, "We meet at a college noted for knowledge, in a city noted for progress, in a state noted for strength. By saying this, he is stating how he chose this specific place to give his speech, and is emphasizing all of the reasons why he is speaking at this university.
Lastly, another rhetorical device that President Kennedy utilizes is repetition. He uses repetition to inspire the audience to come together to support the United States in the space race against the Soviet Union. For example, in the speech, Kennedy states, "We mean to be a part of it. We mean to lead it. We have vowed that we shall not see it governed by a hostile flag of conquest. We have vowed that we shall not see space filled with weapons of mass destruction, but with the instruments of knowledge and understanding." President Kennedy repeats the word "we" to emphasize that the audience members are part of one team. Also, by emphasizing "we," he shows the audience how together they can do many things. Another example of repetition is when President Kennedy declares, "The first waves of the Industrial Revolution, the first waves of modern invention, and the first waves of nuclear power, and this generation does not intend to founder in the backwash of the coming age of space." In this quote, the words "first wave" are repeated for emphasis. President Kennedy repeats these words to highlight the fact that the United States has been up on its feet for every change new inventions bring. This further supports Kennedy's overall thesis that the United States should be the first to venture to the moon.
In conclusion, President Kennedy utilizes rhetoric devices to make a greater impact on his audience, thus making his speech more effective. Within the next decade, the United States sent the first man to the moon. Thank you for listening. Bye.